When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
This content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion advised.
But something about the way he asked, about the way he looked at me, made the hair on my neck stand up. Then, he said something I'll never forget.
They didn't even look annoyed. They were just staring, dead-eyed, like they were watching a deer through a scope.
I checked the cameras again, and sure enough, he was waiting for me outside.
From killer podcasts, true tales of horror, bizarre happenings, unexplainable events, this is Disturbed. Hello, and welcome back to the show. This week, we're bringing you 5 stories that will stalk your thoughts long after the episode ends. So sit back, listen closely, and dive into the horror. First up, a reminder that paranoia isn't always in your head, especially if you look back and don't like what you see. From Reddit user Altruistic Pepper 736 and narrated by Terra Ashe. This is the first time I was ever followed home.
This happened when I was in either 7th or 8th grade. It was one of those sticky, hot summers in the Midwest. The kind of heat that wraps around you like a wet blanket. I lived in a nothing bad ever happens here kind of town. You know the type. Everyone knows everyone and people still leave their doors unlocked at night. The sun had just started to set when my softball game ended. My little sister had already been driven home by our dad, and as everyone else packed up to leave, my coach offered me a ride, but I said no. I don't know if it was embarrassment or pride, but I waved him off and told him I'd ride my bike. It didn't seem like a big deal. Our town was tiny, and I didn't want to deal with another lecture about leaving my bike behind. So I strapped on my gear and started pedaling home. A couple blocks in, I rounded a corner, and that's when I noticed it. A beat-up car just behind me. At first, I didn't register it as a threat. Small town, right? People drive slow. But as I kept biking, I realized the car was sticking way too close. Like exactly my speed kind of close. I glanced back. Inside were 2 college-aged guys I didn't recognize. And in a town of 500 people, that meant something. I knew faces. Everyone did. These guys didn't belong, and to make it worse, the nearest college was about 40 minutes away. I forced a polite smile, but they didn't return it. They didn't even look annoyed that I was in their way. They were just staring, dead-eyed, like they were watching a deer through a scope. At the time, I was really into true crime stories. I remembered something I'd heard. If you think someone's following you, try circling the block. If they're still behind you, it's not a coincidence. I didn't have a phone. I couldn't call for help. All I could do was test the theory. So I took 2 left turns, trying to act casual, keeping my pace steady, like I wasn't scared. Inside, I was already shaking. My brain was racing, scanning for houses I knew, places where someone might be home and answer the door. The car didn't speed up, didn't honk, just kept creeping along behind me like I was tethered to them. By the 3rd turn, the panic was real. I dropped the act and booked it, pedaling harder than I ever had in my life. I spotted a house I vaguely recognized. Maybe someone I knew lived there, maybe not. I didn't care. I veered off the street and onto the yard, ditching my bike in the grass. One last look behind me, and sure enough, they'd pulled up right there, right behind my bike, staring. I ran to the side door, hoping it would be less obvious in the front, swinging open the screen like I lived there. I didn't knock, I didn't hesitate, I just stepped in slightly and shouted, "I'm home!" loud enough for them to hear. And somehow that worked. They hit the gas and took off. I ducked around the back of the house and stayed there, hiding in the yard for what felt like forever, probably only 15 minutes. When I finally came out, I left my bike behind and crept on foot, ducking behind every tree, every bush, every parked car anytime I heard an engine. When I got home, my dad was there. I told him what happened. He thought I was making it up, just trying to explain why I didn't bring the bike back. So I never reported it. I still don't know what those guys wanted. Maybe it really was a misunderstanding, but if I hadn't trusted my instincts, if I hadn't run, I don't want to think about what could have happened. I know this for sure. I never want to meet again.
Our next story is narrated by Adam C. Alderson. Some hunting trips have nothing to do with animals.
I work at a big box retail store, mostly posted at self-checkout. Most days I'm just doing laps, listening to people ask, "Why aren't you on the register?" or joke that I don't work here. You get used to it. We're always short-staffed, usually 2 or 3 of us covering self-check and maybe 2 actual registers open. Then we got a new guy in. Let's call him Terry. It was 2021 and COVID was still in full swing. Terry wore a mask all the time, which wasn't unusual then. I was training him, showing him where we kept the bags, candy racks, that kind of thing. He asked the usual get-to-know-you stuff. If I was in school, if I had a girlfriend. I told him no to both. We live in that kind of place. A small city or maybe a big town, depending on who you ask. Big enough for a college, surrounded by forest, and just rural enough that folks either end up in prison or retail. Then Terry asked if I'd ever been hunting. No, I said, I don't really like guns. That's when he smiled. At least I think he did, hard to tell with the mask, and said, I'll have to take you sometime. A few days go by, he's back on my side of the store again, starts asking more questions. If I've got family in town, if they live nearby. I tell him, yeah, I live 3 doors down from my mom. He starts talking about hunting again. Only this time, it's different. He says he and his buddies have been using pack tactics, boxing in prey from all sides, surrounding it, closing in. Said it worked great. That's weird for deer. They usually bolt at the first twig snap. But Terry just smiles under his mask and goes on. Then he disappears for a few days. New hires struggle to get hours, so I figured it was that. But a coworker comes over and says, "Hey, Terry's been asking about you. Like a lot." When he comes back, his questions are different. "How tall are you exactly? How much do you weigh? You know these woods past so-and-so street pretty well?" Now, I'm a big guy, 6 foot, 300 pounds. But something about the way he asked, about the way he looked at me, made the hair on my neck stand up. Then, he said something I'll never forget. "Come on, man, you'd love it. Just some good old boys shooting the shit, late at night, deep in the woods. And the real fun starts right before dawn. They won't know what hit them." His mask moved a little like he was smiling, but not in a friendly way. I don't know what kind of pitch he thought that was. Other than feeling like I was about to be the prey, it honestly sounded boring as hell. And terrifying. I guess my face gave me away because as soon as I reacted, he turned and walked off. Fast. I told a couple coworkers what he said and how he acted. They were just as weirded out as I was. That was his last day. Never saw him again. And honestly, I hope we never meet again.
Sometimes life is stranger and scarier than fiction. From Reddit user My Darling Darkness, and narrated by Dallas Stark.
I have suffered from sleep paralysis since I was a child. Throughout all my years of dealing with this, I have had some truly horrific experiences. However, the one I had a couple of days ago has been the worst one yet. I woke up not feeling the greatest. I was up for a few hours and, after not feeling much better, I decided to lay back down and try to nap it off. I was turned on my side, facing away from our bedroom door on the far side of mine and my husband's king-size bed. I felt my body relax, and I fell asleep rather quickly. The next thing I remember is slowly opening my eyes and seeing our bedroom wall and the door that leads to our bathroom. The bathroom door was closed. I then tried to move and couldn't. Since I've been through this many, many times, I was already mentally telling myself I was in sleep paralysis and needed to focus on trying to move a little, such as wiggling my fingers, a tip I learned online. However, I was already feeling scared, and I could feel my heart racing. Then I heard the sound of our bedroom door open and close behind me, and our bedroom door makes a very loud and distinct popping noise. I immediately thought it was my husband coming in to check on me and hoped he'd be able to get me to snap out of this horror. That thought quickly vanished as I heard heavy stomping running around the bed until it stopped directly in front of me. I saw a very large and tall black figure standing in front of our bathroom door. This is the same figure I encounter in almost all of my sleep paralysis experiences. I can never make out any features. Before I could register any other thoughts, the large figure lunged at me. I felt the heavy weight of this thing on my body, and it felt like it was crushing me, especially around my ribs. As I mentioned, I was still lying on my side, with both arms pulled up and my hands tucked under my pillow. By now, I had closed my eyes and was trying so desperately to move. That's when I felt teeth burying into my ribs. I don't know how to truly describe this awful feeling. It was an intense combination of pressure, pain, almost a tickling sensation. It was one of the worst things I've ever felt. At this point, I was trying to thrash away and scream, but I was still completely paralyzed. I felt like I had no air left in me, and I was never able to make a sound. I could literally feel this thing's mouth opening and closing in different spots along the side of my ribs. By then, I was mentally screaming and pleading to snap out of it. The next thing I knew, I sat straight up in bed. My heart was racing. I was drenched in cold sweat, and I could still feel tingles in my ribs on my left side. After my eyes darted around the room, and I saw it was completely empty, I lifted up my shirt to inspect my side. The skin wasn't broken, but the whole left side of my rib cage was bright red. I've done a good amount of research on sleep paralysis, and I understand the scientific explanation for it. But waking up with physical marks from these experiences is brand new to me. I've had a ton of anxiety at bedtime ever since this happened. And honestly, I find it hard to believe there's nothing evil or demonic about these sleep attacks.
You're listening to Disturbed. We'll be right back.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Summer's here, and you can now get almost anything you need for your sunny days delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a well-groomed lawn delivered, but you can get a chicken parmesan delivered. A cabana? That's a no. But a banana? That's a yes. A nice tan? Sorry, nope. But a box fan? Happily, yes. A day of sunshine? No. A box of fine wines? Yes. Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
Welcome back to the podcast. Our next story comes from Reddit user ASD_666 and is narrated by Jhas Williams. Some people just can't take no for an answer. And when you work with them, setting a boundary is asking for trouble.
I was 22 years old when this happened. I worked at a grocery store that had recently been featured in the news. You could see me in the clip, and it was pretty clear where I worked. I had just come back from vacation when a coworker told me that some guy had been coming around every day for about a week asking for me. When I asked who or why, they said they had no idea, just that he seemed to be around my age and gave off kind of a strange vibe. A few hours later, the same coworker came back and said the guy was there again, asking for me. In the back room, we had a computer where you could view camera feeds from around the store. So I looked and I didn't recognize him, but figured I'd go out and ask what he wanted. He was clearly drunk. He told me he'd seen me on TV and wanted to ask me out, and I said, "I'm sorry, but I'm in a relationship. even though I wasn't. Then I told him I needed to get back to work. He asked if he should come with me, which confused me. I said, I'm working, and he finally left. But I watched him through the cameras, and he was still outside the store, drinking. A few hours passed, and he was still out there. So when it came time to leave, I used a different exit. The next day, he was waiting for me again, this time with a huge smile on his face as I arrived. He walked up to me really shy and didn't say anything until I greeted him with a quick, "Hey," while walking inside. But he followed me in and he said we needed to talk. I asked, "What's up?" And he said, "How about we go to the movies?" He gave me the creeps. I replied, "Sorry, I have a boyfriend, remember?" As I walked away, he started following me, asking if he could help me with my work. "No, thank you," I said. After that, I checked the cameras again, and sure enough, he was waiting for me outside. I started asking a male coworker to walk me to the tram every night after my shift because it just made me feel a little safer. But after a while, it became clear he wasn't going away. I asked my brother to start driving me to work on his motorcycle and to hug me outside the store, hoping that maybe this guy would see and finally back off. I knew he was watching me arrive every day. But it didn't help. Soon I started getting messages like, "Is that your boyfriend?" And "He doesn't need to know if we go out." I have no idea how he even got my number. I asked around, and one of the newer coworkers admitted that she gave it to him because he told her that we were friends. I was pissed. I told my male coworkers if he ever came back, they should throw him out. And they did. But he kept showing up anyway. A few weeks passed by without any incident, so I actually started to think it was over. I mean, I could breathe again. And then one day, I got to work, went into the changing room like usual. I overheard someone mention that we had a new coworker starting that day, and I didn't think much of it until I walked out and saw he was there. It was my stalker. Another coworker smiled and said, "Hey, this is James." My stomach dropped. I just stared. That's the creep who's been stalking me for weeks. He just stood there, smiling. I immediately went to find my boss and asked him what the hell was going on. He claimed he had no idea James was the same guy, and he kind of laughed it off, saying it wasn't a big deal. But I told him flat out, either he leaves or I do. He told me I wouldn't have to work the same shifts as James and that he couldn't fire him. That was a lie. We ended up on the same shift a lot. And wherever I went, James followed. He never even said a word, just followed me. I started eating my lunch breaks by the monitor so I could watch the cameras and keep tabs on him because he'd be right there just standing behind me, staring. Every single day. He'd text me constantly but still never said anything in person. He just watched. Eventually, my boss began to realize James wasn't doing any actual work, just stalking. Finally, he started thinking of ways to fire him. One day, I caught James clearly drunk while on the clock. I told my boss, and that was the last straw. He finally fired him. That's when the stalking finally stopped. But it took me a long time to feel truly safe again. I kept looking over my shoulder for months, and every time I started a shift, I'd brace myself just in case he came back. Fortunately, he didn't. I never got an apology from the coworker who gave him my number, and I'll never forget how my boss brushed it off like it was no big deal, but it was a big deal. And that experience changed how I move through the world. I just hope no one else has to go through something like it.
Our final story will make you think twice about who walks you home. From Reddit user Smalley Bells 1, narrated by Kat Carter.
This happened almost a year ago. It was nighttime and I was waiting for a train at an empty outdoor station. This place had an eerie feel to it. Dark, cold, but I didn't feel unsafe. The platform was wide open and I could see both ends clearly. I remember thinking, if anyone comes, I'll see them coming. I just hoped no one did. But, of course, someone did. 2 men appeared, heading toward the station. Right away, I felt my body tense up. You know, you never know what someone's intentions are, especially as a woman, alone, at night. My mind started doing the math it always does. Are they here for the train or for me? As they got closer, the younger man answered a phone call in a language I didn't recognize. His tone was light, cheerful. He gave me a nod and walked right past, then sat on the ground, pretty far away. I actually exhaled in relief, assuming the other guy would follow him. He didn't. Instead, the older man stopped directly in front of me, looked me up and down. I asked in my language, "Is there a problem?" He answered in the same language, "No problem," and then added, "You're beautiful. Why do you look so sad?" Uncomfortable, but still hoping he'd just move along, I gave a half-hearted nod. At first, he just seemed like some older guy who didn't realize how off-putting he was. Then my train arrived. That should have been the end of it. He asked if he could sit next to me. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. Just kind of shrugged. You know, frozen in that awkward way when your body doesn't catch up to your instincts. I got on the train, tried to find a seat away from both of them. Didn't matter. The older guy sat beside me. The younger one sat directly across. I told myself, it's fine. Just make it to your stop. But he kept trying to make eye contact, kept calling me beautiful, asking me personal questions I didn't want to answer. And then it got weird. He tried to put his arm around me. I kept pulling away. Then he asked me if I wanted to go with him. I said no. He kept pushing, said I needed to be free, to be happy, said he could help me. I kept saying no. He changed the subject again, asked why I looked so sad. I told him I wasn't. He said I was. I said no. He said yes. Back and forth. He said I should give him my socials, just in case I ever needed his advice. I said no. Told him I wasn't comfortable with that. He didn't let up. And then my phone rang. My friend called me. Salvation. I talked to her the whole rest of the ride, and when I finally got to my stop, I got off and walked straight toward the parking lot. I didn't see either of them. I thought maybe I was in the clear. I found a spot to hide out and call my dad. That's when I felt someone hug me from behind. It was the older man, alone. I shoved him off and stepped back, ready to fight. My fists were clenched, my heart pounding. He looked at me and said, "I just want to say goodbye." His voice dripping with something that felt too rehearsed, too calm. He stepped closer, lips pursed like he was about to kiss me. I pushed him again and ran. I called my dad, broke down the second I knew I was safe. I don't know what would have happened if things had gone differently, but I know I don't ever want to see that man again. Please, let's not meet.
Want more Disturbed? Check out our Patreon for member-exclusive content, early merch access, and other cool perks. I'm your host, Doug Bailey, and this has been Disturbed, a production of Killer Podcasts and part of the Evergreen Network. For more paranormal and true crime shows, visit killerpodcasts.com. Follow our social channels at Disturbed Podcast on Instagram or Disturbed_pod on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and reviewing on your favorite listening platform. Share your own true horror story at disturbedpodcast.com. Music by Epidemic Sound and by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Our producer is Noah Fouts. Our audio engineers are Nathan Corson and Will Pritz. Executive producer Bridget Coyne. Until next time, stay safe out there.
Plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a Real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a Real ID, or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your Real ID at tsa.gov/RealID. That's tsa.gov/RealID, or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.